Damn, son, where'd you find this?
People don't be offended by the truth. They be offended because you called out the truth. Simple as that. They don't want to hear any other narrative that makes them look bad.
And one thing I can't stand at this big grown age is somebody who act like cause and effect does not exist. Like, yes, your actions caused this outcome. Yes, what you did lit the match. Like, why are you surprised and playing victim?
Guys, Chico, they never lied.
That's how you know somebody doesn't respect you. They listen to reply, not to be understood. They cut you off. They minimize what actually matters to you. They laugh at your boundaries, and then they call you sensitive when you try to hold the line. They show up late. They cancel last minute, forget the things you've told them, because in their world, your time, your energy, even your voice aren't a priority. They're just an option. You see, there are two kinds of people. Those who adjust when they realize they've actually hurt you, and those who expect you to adjust so they don't have to change. You don't need to be disrespected loudly to be disrespected deeply. Sometimes you'll see it. It's just in their tone, in their patterns, in the silence after you're known. Respect isn't what they say when they're watching. It's how they act when they think you'll tolerate it.
Mantra, slave song, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones, but no matter. Mantra, slave song, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones, but no matter how close I and my ancestors speak, they tell me they're tired of the front on us like we're weak. I haven't been getting sleep, longing to sing until I surpass peak, until they think we are equal. Please, all I want is peace. My ancestors beat drums until their bones would bleed, begging the generations remember our story.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's the word? What's the word? What's the word? How everybody feeling today? I hope you warm. I hope you being safe on the road. Glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. I want to say thank you to everybody that is in the building this morning. Special shout outs to Claire for pulling up last night and putting on that performance. Shout out to Rob. Shout out to Zay. Shout out to the crew in the building this morning. You see the title. I got a clip that I'm going to pull up here on the big screen in a second. I got Coach. I got Sydney in the building. I'm bringing them up. And we got to have a chat, man. So get your hot chocolate or whatever beverage you need. Get cozy, get comfortable. And yeah, let's get it. Yo.
Hello.
Grand Risings, how's everybody today?
Doing pretty good. I got to sleep in. Also, just an update, that one post that I told you about, it's now 470 people have been engaging with it. So I'm not used to this.
Congratulations. Morning. Hey man, you looking fly this morning? What's going on?
Nah, man, you've been pulling out the hats and the suits and stuff, man. I felt like I needed to go ahead and try to throw on some stuff here and there, man.
I hate, man.
Motivation.
Right.
Nah, I'm good though, man. I hope all is well with y'all. I'm gonna bring this up on the big screen. I'm gonna let it play out. Give y'all initial thoughts. We're just gonna jump straight into it. This conversation was between Carlos Miller and Sarah Father. She's a therapist. She has a podcast. I don't know how this conversation came up, but yeah, I'm gonna let it play all the way through and we'll just go from there. It's like 2 minutes, 37 seconds.
I don't even really know if it's dating. I haven't seen a lot of people out here successfully dating. Seen a
No,
lot of people out here trying to
successfully.
buy their spot on the team.
Wait, what's that mean, Carlos?
They trying to buy their spot. It's a lot of tricking, a lot of gift giving, a lot of look at what I could do for you if you make me an option.
Do you think that men that have money are ever truly loved for them?
Yeah, just probably not by the people they want to be loved by.
Oh.
Yeah, because once you get to a certain level, it's not just about what you like. Sometimes you got to find a person that you like that kind of fits the aesthetic of what you present.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's like, so you don't feel like most people that have, okay, so here's a question, because Paul Pierce said date a 5 or a 6. He told the fellas,
That's terrible advice.
why?
Because 5 or 6s, they don't fit the aesthetic.
No.
No. Plus, why would you? It's just like, why would you sell yourself short? If you got to put the same effort in to get a 5 or a 6 to get a 10, why not just get a 10?
But do they require the same effort?
Absolutely.
Do you feel like someone that's a 10 or a 5 or 6 have the same level of self-esteem?
Yes. The 5 or the 6 probably has more self-esteem than the 10.
Really?
Absolutely.
Why you say that?
Because she's aspiring to be a 10. And in her mind, she's already a 10. And you have to play along with
the 5 or 6 thinks
Yes.
she's a 10?
Yeah.
You think 5 or
There's no 10 that's literally walking around here like I'm a 10. The 10 is probably gonna tell you I'm on 5 or 6. He laughing because he know that I'm not. That's facts. So you might as well put the same effort in and get a 10.
But you don't feel like it comes with much more of like an entitled mindset?
No, the 10s are not. See, that's the misconception about the 10s.
Tell me more.
The 10s be cool as hell.
Yeah.
Like they trying to do everything to get out of the 10 box. They want to show you that they regular girls. They want to do regular things.
Stuff.
But the 5 or the 6 regular will never be good enough.
Really?
Especially if you have the means to do all of those things that you want.
So you think that most men are tricking to get on a 5 or 6's roster, or you think they tricking to get on a 10's roster?
The thing about it now is you don't know who the real 10s are.
What does that mean?
You can take a 5 or a 6 and give her the right budget and the right hairstylist,
No.
the right makeup. Yes, you can.
No.
Yes, you can.
No.
You don't know she a 5 or a 6 until
Carlos, you can't change structure.
All right. I'm not just telling you my opinion. Look at how he's laughing. He knows.
Yeah. All right. Agree, disagree. Anything you want to add on to what he said? Answer a question. The initial thoughts.
Go ahead, Sid.
I agreed with what he said. I didn't like what she said at the end. I do think. Evers, can you go in the playroom, please? I definitely think that there's a lot of men that are really trying to buy their spot into the dating pool. I think a lot of men also think that they're going to pull a 10, and it's also, we're in a time where it's very hard to tell what a 10 is, because I think the idea of what a 10 is not accurate. I would say, like, a lot more people are basing it off of appearance and not personality and quality. Personally, my own version of 10 includes personality traits, includes stability, includes aspects of themselves that people don't really consider. Like, I want a man that's willing to work hard, a man that's willing to see changes that need to happen and is willing to actually work at it. One of my biggest pet peeves are people that complain about something that is changeable and then they do nothing about it. And these are all aspects of people that get overlooked in favor of, well, she's pretty, so yeah. And the thing at the end that she said, where he was saying, like, well, you can take a girl and like a 5 or 6 and you can give her a good hairstyle and stuff like that. And she's like, oh no, it's the facial structure and whatever. I'm like, that no, I think every woman is beautiful, and it has a lot more to do with how she is inside. And you can have a woman that isn't like physically beautiful, but she could have the purest heart. She could be the most wonderful human being, and she's going to get overlooked because somebody else knows how to do makeup and knows how to do their hair. And I mean, truthfully, with makeup and hair, you can take somebody that's like a 1 and make them look like a 10. But again, that doesn't mean anything. It just means that they know how to have theatrical effects that work for them. And I think also, not to go off on a tangent, but I think our visual, our expectations for beauty have also been drastically skewed over the years. And the definition of beauty is incredibly narrow now.
Yeah, I'll just say that it's all subjective. It's really open to interpretation. Whatever it is that you're attracted to, it that you like, and I'll say it's on both ends of the spectrum nowadays. People are definitely offering, maybe bartering gifts for attributes that they may not possess. So I definitely understand what he's saying, that what they're lobbying for their spots, but it's all subjective, man. It just depends on what you're looking for in a person. So to each his own. And I definitely think that you can if you have somebody that's open-minded, and if you like the way they are, and then maybe say hairstyle or shaving or whatever the case may be, maybe something that you like, recommending that they do that to kind of polish up a little bit. I don't see anything wrong with that, but yeah, definitely it's subjective.
Definitely subjective. For one, if you aren't attracted to the person, you're just not attracted to the person, period. Right? I don't care what nobody say. Your initial attraction to the person is what's going to get you to even have a conversation. Most people don't care about even saying hi or being respectful in that regard, to just start a dialogue up just based off of, well, hey, how's your day going? Blah blah blah. If you do not, I don't know, if you don't present yourself as welcoming or warming, you're not really going to get much of a response from somebody. It's just like they look at you like you are, how can I put this? Based on your appearance will determine how a person treats you these days. I personally could care less if you were homeless or if you didn't have it like that, because you can judge a book by its cover all day, and they could literally be an angel in disguise or someone that was sent to you in divine moments of your time, and you'll dismiss them just because they're missing hair, they got one eye and the other one is kind of leaning to the other side. I agree with Sydney on that part. There are other things that you should be looking for in a person in terms of attraction, but we can't sit here and pretend like if you look like a cone head or something like that, that you're going to get the same results as somebody who looks like Holly Berry back in 1997.
No, I agree, right? But some of the things that once you get past that initial shock factor, and maybe you actually have a conversation with that person, sometimes that's when I guess once you get to have a conversation, start a dialogue, and then you may start to find yourself finding some attractions to them. You see that in some relationships, or even that's what happens in some workplaces or on teams, when people start to see past the superficial things and actually get to know somebody, then they start to find themselves like sis mentioned, that they're attracted to their personalities and their inner self. So, but again, that's getting past the initial, shock factor of the one eye or the cone head per se.
I got a question. With everything that he said, is dating even worth it in 2025? I mean, you telling me even if in your eyes I'm not 8 or 9, but I carry myself like I'm an 8 or 9, I'm still going to get disqualified because I don't meet all of these extra requirements. I don't make $200,000 a year. I don't drive a Bentley. I don't have this. I don't have that social circle. The minute I present to you my boundaries, I find interest in you. But you look at me like I'm beneath you because on the look scale, I don't meet your model. So because I don't meet your model, I don't have the right to tell you I'm not tolerating this. I'm not dealing with this. The minute I put any type of disclaimers here, it's going to be an issue. And on top of that, I have to buy everything. I have to pay for everything. There's no substance here if I don't spend $200-$300 on a dinner or a breakfast date. But you can be a 5 or a 6 or whatever you want to label it. You don't have to have the same requirements of you. All you got to do is present yourself well and be a female, and period. That's it. You don't have to step up your game. You don't have to be pleasant. You don't have to do this, and do that. What does it look like to you right now?
I'd argue that, for one, I think dating is still worth it, but you have to be very conscientious about it. You have to, know who you are, and know who you are basically in a vacuum without all the other external influences. You have to be comfortable with being who you are underneath, without trying to be like copying everyone else. Because once you date as someone you're not, you're more likely to attract somebody that doesn't match your lifestyle, that doesn't match who you are, that won't actually love you for who you are, because you're basically putting on a show, and then eventually that facade is going to fall away and they're going to be like, oh, this isn't the person that I wanted. So you have to be okay being yourself, your real self. And you also have to be very conscientious, careful about where you're dating. Personally, I think it's best to date in the areas that match who you are as a person. Online dating, sure, it's convenient, but I think if you really want to find somebody that matches who you are, you kind of have to frequent the areas that match who you are. Like, if you are a nature person, go hiking, go get into like hiking groups and like outdoor type outings with other people. Try to meet people that do the same things that you do. If you're more of like a library girl, like go to book clubs and stuff like that. Like, try to do the things that match who you are, that you love to do, because then you're more likely to find somebody who also loves the same things that you do. But I also caution the idea that the man has to do everything from the other side. I know there is that expectation that the man has to always pay for the dates. The man has to take charge. He has to like get the flowers and do all the extra work. But I think there's something attractive about a woman who's also willing to reciprocate and do the same thing. And I think that's another thing that's hugely missing right now is there's a lot of women that think that the man has to do it for them. And if he's not, then he's not a keeper. And like my husband and I, he even had a conversation with his coworker about this recently because she was telling him like, you have to take your wife out more often. Like, why don't you take her to restaurants? Like, why don't you go on dates and like go to movies and all this stuff? And he's like, that's not what we do. Like, that's not who we are. And we're not like, personally, I don't really care for restaurants because I'm like, I'd rather have order in and sit at my own home and have our own conversations without all these other people around us. I don't want to have to dress up just to go eat for an hour and then come back. I'm like, no. So that's just not my thing. Like our version of a date is going on a long drive or going out to a park and going hiking or going to the beach and just hanging out with each other. And everyone has their own expectations of what a date should be to them. But I think so many women are kind of looped into this. The date has to be, you go out to this fancy restaurant and then he takes you to some like, I don't know, like a club or something. I don't know what they like to do, but it's like, it has to be this rich, fancy night where you're all dressed up and it has to be like, he's showering you with gifts and all this stuff. And I think that expectation harms both men and women because number one, men are now expected to like raise the bar every time. So every date has to be better than the next one. And now they're competing like it's like an auction. Who can throw the most money at the woman is going to be the winner rather than who is the highest quality. And then as a kind of leading into that, it's doing women a disservice because then they're expecting the highest bidder is going to be the best man for them, which is not going to be true because just because he has the most money does not mean he has the best character, does not mean he's going to have the best personality or the most common interests. And it's harmful to have that type of perspective within dating because it completely removes the genuine aspect of dating, which is to get to know somebody, to understand who they are, to see if you're a good match, to see if you get along with them. And once you add money in, it's blinding because you're only going to see the resource and not the person. So I personally think that really money should be, it should be a small factor because it's like you obviously want to be with somebody who's going to be stable. And if you intend to get married, like you obviously shouldn't marry somebody who has like massive gambling issues or is going to like steal money from you or whatever. Like they have issues with money. But at the same time, you shouldn't base it solely off that because you could have the kindest man who's has a hard work ethic and who's going to be a great family man, but he works at like a coal mine or something like that. And you could be missing out just because you're like, oh, well, I want the executive. So, yeah.
Yeah, great point, sis. Definitely, you want to. It's hard to navigate in society today because of everything that's posted online, and so many people are comparing relationships and lives with other people's lives and relationships that they see online. And then also the cutoff culture, it makes it kind of difficult. If you can't get past, as they identified as a 10, a 9, an 8, or 7, so you're not even having a conversation and fostering these relationships to develop into anything healthy. So it kind of makes it hard. Everything seems to be so shallow and surface level. Just basically listen to everybody talk about 10s and 9s. So yeah, definitely get to know who you are as a person. Then that way you can identify with what you're actually looking for and what you need, because it's more beneficial if you complement each other. And it's kind of hard to find somebody to complement you if you don't know necessarily your strong points or your weak points.
Mute.
There was a comment on the video where someone said that a guy will marry a 5 or a 6 only to continue to pursue a 10 or a 9. Do you agree with that? See,
I think it depends on the man. Like it, I mean, to be honest, that says more about his personality / virtue than it does just men in general. Um, there are a lot of men that will do that. They'll get in the relationship knowing, or at least expecting, or I don't know what goes through their mind, but I know there's a lot of men that get in relationships knowing that they're not going to stay monogamous, knowing that they're just going to keep trying to level up, looking for the next one, and basically being greedy, trying to get whoever they can. But I do think there are a lot of decent men out there that are going to be comfortable with who they end up with, even if they see other women that they're like, oh, I acknowledge that she's beautiful. I don't think that all men are like that.
Yeah, I don't know about most men, but I mean, it could be something that happens, and it also could be something that at that particular point they may feel like they have something to offer each other. But once they engage in that relationship, if he or she or them have good intentions, you would hope that they would try to start to build something. But in every relationship, it's all based on having a solid foundation. And if that's what the intentions are, then obviously that type of relationship won't last. It seems like something out of a need at that particular moment. Maybe they gravitate towards something that they can use from that individual, or that can be beneficial from that individual at that particular point in time. And that's not saying that the intention to be with that person is not there. It seems the way they're saying it is opportunistic, but you would hope that isn't the case. But it's not necessarily something wrong with getting with somebody and then realizing that relationship is not for you. So I mean, it's twofold. So whether that happens or doesn't happen, I don't know the mindset. I can't speak to the mindset. But if it does happen, I would just say it's better to separate and get out of that relationship. If you identify that relationship is not indeed for you, or there's no more progress that can be made out of that relationship.
I think the reason why a lot of people say stupid stuff like that is because they trying to make you feel some type of way about the fact that a guy is more likely to find happiness with somebody who is probably not as aesthetically appealing as you are. So you're trying to gaslight people into essentially chasing after you because you feel like you look better than that person and you feel entitled to what she's getting versus what you're getting. But you don't understand that the reason why most men gravitate towards this is because there are some things there that are more important than what you are putting a lot of stock in. So you think just because you're attractive, that gives you the right to be intolerable. It gives you the right to be sarcastic and overly aggressive and overly masculine and overly rude. And you can just get away with having some of these characteristics that most people would never deal with on a day-to-day basis because it don't work like that. But you're privileged and you're accustomed to getting treated a certain way. So men are not really trying to put up with that. It's cool. You look good, but how far is that going to get us in the house? What does that mean if I'm looking at you 24 hours a day and I'm going in and out working and I'm doing this and doing that, but you just sitting there with that Cleopatra crown on your head and you got the men at your feet waving their little fans at you while I'm doing everything for you, and you got the nastiest attitude. Nobody's really trying to deal with that. So I think that was just her way of trying to just downplay it or make it seem like men are only going after these women because, nah, y'all got to stop with those narratives. Period.
Yeah, it paints a bad picture. I mean, especially in this day and age, I think a lot of men are starting to identify their worth, not just being used for buying gifts and you know utilizing it. They got a better head on their shoulders than men did, some years back. Making better choices in life, mentally, physically, spiritually. So I think it's got to give some men some credit out there. Some of them may deserve to have a few options, because that's one of the things that comes with having a little bit more money as well. Is putting you in different categories, and whether it sounds good or bad, when you do have a little bit more money than other people, it does provide you different options and a different playing field than some folks. So that might be the piece as well. I mean, you mentioned gaslighting, so that might be a way of just kind of throwing rocks and hiding your hands, by talking about them choosing lesser, I guess, numbers, a 5 or a 6. I'm not even sure why they using the numbers 5 or 6, but yeah, using the 5 or 6 versus a 10. So if they're saying that's the reason why men are chasing 5s and 6s, it may just be provided that they got better options, and then the ones that they're deeming to be 10s, they may not be as well put together. So the 10 may be, again, it goes back to putting it in sliders. So personality wise, looks wise might be a 10, but common sense wise might be a 3. You know what I mean? Or might be obnoxious, different things like that, different characteristics. So again, that's why it's so subjective. So it's just really what you want, knowing what you want, and being able to maintain that in that relationship.
I'm not about to make all this money, build this career, and go through all these loopholes just so that when I decide to say I do to somebody, all they care about is the roof over their head. And you don't even see me as a human being. That's crazy. Why would I sign up for that? And another thing is, why do these women, not all of them, but why do a large amount of these women act as if men are just robots? Like we don't feel or we don't bleed, like we're just machines and nothing bothers us, nothing affects our psyches or nothing like that. We're just get up, go to work, and bring the money back. Like there's nothing else to us. I don't understand it, but it's like, all right, I don't believe that you can't find somebody. I think it's more difficult to find someone now for all the reasons we kind of just touched on. When you go looking for the wrong stuff, that's exactly what you're going to get. Let me ask a question, Sid. Is this market more focused on men's needs or women's needs?
Women's needs, 100%. We're coming into a time period where men are being silenced. I've been seeing a lot of research come out about this. Psychologists have been talking about this, how men are basically being pushed aside. Their mental health is being pushed aside for the purpose of women's gratification. And it's getting to the point where I've been hearing men are completely stepping out of the dating pool because they're like, it has nothing to offer me. I'm basically going to be spending all my money trying to hook on to this person who is just going to take advantage of me or leave me for another man or whatever. Like, it's not worth all of this effort. And the expectations that women carry as well are extremely hard to meet. A lot of women are being trained by their mothers, their parents to, like, you have to have a man that does A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and if he doesn't, then he's no good for you. And you can't do it all. A person is not physically capable to be everything for somebody. And also, that speaks a lot to your internal sense, your mental health. If you're expecting somebody to do it all for you, to allow you to be voluntarily helpless. Number one, that's not going to be good for the person that it's all being put on, because I've been hearing a lot of women getting into the relationship saying, well, you're going to be the one that works, you're going to be the one that cleans the house, you're going to be the one taking care of the kids when we have kids, you're going to be the ones doing all of these things, and I'm just going to be here looking pretty because that's what my job is for you. And I think that's incredibly damaging to both men and women, because men are going to be essentially taking on a complete and total dependent, and then with a bad attitude to boot. And then women are going to be, number one, putting themselves in incredible, in a really difficult spot, or arguably dangerous spot, because if they might get lucky and end up with a good guy who is willing to put up with all that, or even better, is willing to work with them to make them realize that that's not how things go. But a lot of women are going to end up with abusive men who are going to take advantage of the fact that she's completely helpless. She doesn't have a job history. She doesn't know how to do anything for herself. And women like that are incredibly easy to manipulate because they don't have that type of life experience. They don't have the willingness to stand up for themselves, they don't have the ability to raise themselves, to work on themselves, to do all of the things that are necessary. And it's in the middle ground too. If maybe he's not abusive, maybe he's just not a good fit, but then they get a divorce and they're completely helpless. They don't know how to exist on their own. And so then they'll struggle to get a job, struggle to get a home, struggle to get back on their feet, and they're just going to date around again just to find somebody else to pick them back up. And that's not a very healthy cycle to be in, to be voluntarily codependent. And it also greatly limits your opportunities in life. I think another aspect too is the one of the things that is kind of the fallacy, or I guess people forget about, is it doesn't just stop with dating. If women are expecting you to pay for all these dates, take you on fancy things, buy you fancy clothes, jewelry, wine, everything, that's not going to stop once you're married. They're going to want an expensive wedding, an expensive honeymoon. They're going to want all the fanciest things to adorn their house. They're going to want all the fancy things when their baby eventually comes. They're going to want the expensive babysitter. They're going to want the expensive everything. And so these men are setting themselves up to fail because they're going to need infinitely more money as this relationship goes on, if they maintain this whole, like, yeah, I'm going to support you and give you anything that you want. Because their demands are just going to get higher and higher, and the rings are going to get more and more expensive. The wine is going to get more and more expensive. The everything that is in their house is just going to have to be fancier and fancier. They're going to end up needing like a whole Versailles mansion just to make her happy. So I think it does both of them a disservice, because it disenfranchises the women. It makes them think that they can be helpless and get stuff out of it, which is putting them at risk if things fall apart on them. And then unfortunately it's making men wildly stressed out. And unfortunately, I think it also feeds a lot of the negative attitudes that men have towards women. And I think it can trigger aspects or viewpoints of misogyny if men are seeing women expecting these things. Then they're going to see the negative stereotypes about women, and it's going to be validated. And so they're going to be like, oh yeah, I guess all women are like that. And so it basically poisons both sides of the spectrum, making women and men have negative expectations for both sides, and it's just going to sow resentment in the middle.
I agree with you, Michelle. A lot of people don't know what they want. You experiment. Like the day you lost your virginity, then you started going out here. You put yourself with your back against the wall, because now the first person that you fell in love with didn't work out. You go through that little phase, and then you meet somebody else, and then they're slightly different than that person. That don't work out. You go through a succession of experimenting around with different men and women. Then you realize that you have a type, or at least you develop a type through trial and error, not really knowing that that type might not be what you're actually supposed to be around or with. And then you just continue on, heartache after heartache, frustration after frustration. Why? Because you don't know yourself well enough to understand that this is not the type of person that you're supposed to be actually dealing with. And that's a fact. I said that before too. Folks will complain, get on social media all day and cry about the dude not being this or the woman not being that, but you chose them for whatever reason. You thought they were funny, you thought they smelled good, whatever reason, you decided to open your leg to that person. You decided to get close and interpersonal with them. So at the end of the day, this is your storyline with them. You don't. There's no third party unless you doing something we don't know about. You got you a cuck, but outside of that, you decide ultimately who you deal with. So I don't really be wanting to hear all that. Oh man, all men ain't this. All men, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it because you chose them. That's the type of person that you continue to deal with. And stop blaming all men and stop blaming all women for your crap. Everybody's paths are specific to them. Your storyline is different than mine. So if you have been accustomed to dealing with this type of person, that means that there's some stuff about you that you need to figure out so that you don't keep on in that same pattern. Overall, and I'm gonna yield the mic. Dating is more difficult because we made it more difficult. Because we don't understand our truth. We don't understand our power. We don't understand our roles, our positions, our purpose. We don't know ourselves like we think we know ourselves. You think you know, but you don't. Oh, I'm gonna try something different, but you're still dealing with the same crap. Oh, now instead of me going after solely looks, I'm just gonna go after somebody with money. How does that work out? Oh, that's not doing nothing for me, but at least I ain't broke. Still not happy. So the mindset got to change completely. I yield the mic.
Yeah, so I'd agree, and I just say probably need to focus and put a message out, because we talk a lot about the men, but as far as with the women as well, is like Sid mentioned, is having that laundry list of requirements from the man to take care of everything in a relationship. Um, it's kind of like the old traditional, what people deem to be traditional in America way of the man being the breadwinner and taking care of everything in a relationship, but with the modern woman's mindset. So everything has evolved except the roles and responsibilities of the man in a relationship. Um, so I think it just depends on, again, talk about that word perspective again. Going in open-minded and just having a conversation as far as what your expectation management is from your partner. If you don't intend to, pay for everything and you don't intend to buy gifts and all these things, that let it be known. Just be open to have the conversation. Not everybody likes gifts. A lot of people are now getting more introspective and finding out what they actually like and what means and what's important to them. And it's just important to communicate that and then just receive, that communication as well. Some people like to buy gifts. There's nothing wrong with that. But if that's something that you like to do, at the same time, you can't force somebody to get reciprocated the way you want it to, because that's not necessarily something that they like. You may be the way you show your acts of love by acts of giving, and just making sure it's understood. I think is the key there. It all goes down back to communication, and like Sid mentioned earlier, if you like going on hikes together, or if you like going on trails, or if you just like to do some things with some friends that you have, because sometimes we put so much responsibility on that other person. That's why you have social groups and social networks for you to go out and do some of those things as well. Sometimes we put too much pressure on the relationship. You can't be all and everything for somebody. Although in the movies and society that's what they like to have you believe and think, but you got to be realistic. It's only 24 hours in a day. Somebody's working, and if somebody's going to school, and if you have kids, hobbies, or whatever the case may be, you have to factor that stuff in as well. And then each individual needs to make sure that they're factoring time for their mental health. You got to take care of yourself mentally, physically as well, spiritually as well, and you need time to do that. And it can't be consumed with worrying about somebody every facet of the day, making sure that you're buying something, you're purchasing something, you're doing all these different things. So again, just making sure you're communicating, even if you aren't reciprocating the gifts, or we keep saying gifts, but whatever it is that you're not receiving, you just got to make sure you're communicating that as well. So, don't just complain about the things that you aren't getting. Men and both women like positive feedback as well. So don't hesitate to tell somebody what they're doing well in a relationship also. We tend to highlight the negative things and always tell people what they're doing wrong. So take some time out to tell people, hey, I appreciate you for doing this. I appreciate you today for doing those type of things. So, just like we, say the positive affirmations, you want to make sure you give people positive feedback because that fosters a good relationship as well.
One thing that you mentioned too that I wanted to touch on is a lot of this mentality does come from like a historical perspective of like, oh, well, in previous eras, like women just got to sit and be taken care of and whatnot. But that people forget that that's coming from a very small sliver of history, in a small sliver of people in history. In the sense that was mostly associated with royalty, high wealth individuals. But if you were born prior to the 1950s, most people were working equally as hard. Like women did not get to just sit and twiddle their thumbs and hang out at home all day. Like they were the ones washing the clothes, which there were no washing machines. So you had to go to the river and scrub the clothes for hours and hours and hours just to get all the stains out of the clothes of the maybe 2 outfits that you have. And they were the ones that had to kill the chickens and pluck the chickens and cook the chickens and get the eggs and all, like plant all the food that they were ever going to eat. And if you didn't want to do that, then guess what? You starved. They're the ones that had to milk the cows. They were the ones that had to walk 2 miles into town just to get the few ingredients they needed to make bread by hand. So women did not have it any easier in the past unless you were extraordinarily wealthy. And even in those positions, it was not a good time. Like most royal women were not like absorbently happy because they got to have whatever they wanted. Most of them were mistreated. They didn't actually get to see their husband most of the time because the husband was out doing whatever he was doing. And they were mostly interacting with their servants. So these women have idealized a part of history that doesn't exactly even exist. And it's only now because we have consumerism at our fingertips that we're able to make it seem like this is an achievable dream, which to me it seems like a nightmare. I would absolutely hate to be subservient to my partner. That would be absolutely miserable. And I think that also brings up the other aspect of we have to decouple love from consumerism, because consumerism, I think, is one of the biggest aspects that is affecting the whole mindset of what dating is supposed to be. I mean, even before the 1940s, like it wasn't even customary to give a woman a ring to get married. It was the De Beers Corporation that linked love to diamonds, and they had an advertising campaign saying you don't love a woman unless you give her a diamond ring. And ever since then, it's been far more I wouldn't even say common. It's just been like pushed by men that, well, you have to give her a ring to prove that you love her. And that's just another example of how consumerism is skewing our expectations of what love is supposed to look like. And we're just, I mean, it's no surprise that in this hyper consumeristic era that we're seeing a hyper consumeristic dating atmosphere as well. So I think they're very, very closely linked. And as I said earlier, it's a huge distraction from what dating is supposed to be, because you're supposed to be focused on understanding each other, understanding if it's a good match. Like, I know a lot of people love to hate on, like, oh, arranged marriages and stuff like that, which, of course, there are situations where it ends up being extremely bad. But in the past, they were made off of multiple different considerations. They would try and pick somebody that was, I mean, obviously it didn't always work out, but the families were trying to pick somebody that matched well with who you were. And they also had like financial considerations and stuff like that. Not advocating for that now, because it definitely has its definite downsides. But it's not all people make it seem to be, and there used to be way more considerations with partnership than there is now. Most people now just base it off of, can he buy me things, and is he attractive, and is he more attractive than all my friends' partners? And that is making people make really poor decisions because they're not considering all the other aspects. Like the one of the things that I always come to is like, the attractiveness is going to go away. The qualities inside the person are not going to go away. So while both of you are getting all wrinkled and your bones are going to start hurting, you're not going to really care much of how they look. You're going to care, can you sit with them in a room and hang out with them and be with them when you only have each other? Like when the kids are gone, when you have nothing to do because you're both retired, can you stand to be in a room with them? Can you have conversations with each other? Can you find things to do with each other? But we don't think about that stuff anymore. We just think about like, well, what fancy restaurant is he going to take me to next? And can he continue to take me to fancy restaurants in the near future? So yeah, we definitely have to uncouple purchasing power from love, because those two do not go together, and it's just leading people to make poor decisions out of greed, essentially.
Dating is still possible. Your approach needs to change. The way that you view it needs to change. And the folks that you are getting your information from needs to be examined a little more closely. You can't get advice from everybody. And on top of that, you got to stop lying to yourself. You got to be more honest with how you're presenting yourself out here in the world, how you're treating people, because you know you better than you. You might think you are the light, but other people might think you are asshole. You might be overly aggressive. You might talk way too bluntly for folks' taste. There's things about you that you know will drive a person mad. I'm just using that as an example. We have to look within to figure out what our external is doing to us, because most of the things that you end up surrounding yourself with is based on stuff that is internalized most of the time. If you don't want somebody who's high maintenance, then you need to put yourself in an environment that doesn't seek superficial things. Change your circle up. Start embracing your actual hobbies. Stop trying to fit in with the social norms. And start vetting properly so that you can find out who is really there for the right reasons or not. Problem solved. One thing I do want to address before we close out, something that he has said, I actually agree with. But I think it goes on both accounts. Matter of fact, all right, let me ask this. Just because you put money and status in the hands of a 5 or 6 man or woman, does that change them being a 5 or 6? Just because you give them the red carpet treatment, does that mean that they are no longer still 5 or 6? Do they forever go from 5 or 6 to 8, 9, 10 just because of the money and because of the position?
I think what he was saying in the video, if you're identifying or labeling somebody a 5 or a 6, and some of the things that I guess the notches, or the reason why they didn't receive 7, 8, 9, and 10 is because of the way they dress. Maybe the hair is outdated, the nails are outdated. Like you guys alluded to earlier, not necessarily good at putting on the makeup and things like that. With the money, you can provide services to get those things taken care of. Consistent services, going to the hairdresser, if that's what the person wants to do. As far as manicures, pedicures, seeing somebody, maybe a Mary Kay specialist, whatever the case may be. If those are the areas that you're deeming that detracts the 10, 9, 8 that gets them to the 7 and 6, then I guess that way you can. But again, that has to be what both parties indeed want, especially the recipient, so that way that they can intend act like an 8, 9, or a 10. So the appearances may be that way, but doesn't necessarily mean the personality may change unless you send them to like charm school or something along those lines. And that could be another way to, kind of progress them along, teach them some etiquette, some discipline. Again, just whatever areas they're lacking in that you deem them to be a 5 or a 6. So that's potentially possible, but I don't know how long that'll be. I don't know the outcome of it. You may get them to that level, but I don't know if they'll be able to maintain it.
Yeah, I don't think that it matters one way or another. You are who you're just destined to be, or like you can change some things about yourself, but it's up to you to maintain that. And you have to be in a place in your life where you're willing to let go of the old version of yourself. There's growing And then there's just cosplaying. So
And you have to find somebody you can grow with, grow together, and kind of grow almost in the same direction. Because otherwise, you're going to grow apart. And that's how marriages, relationships fall apart.
them people, you think they 5 and 6s. You think they're 5 6s. The next person might not think that. To each his own, you know. Well, I want to say thank you to everybody who pulled up. Michelle, Sid, Coach. This was a good one. I'm about to chop this up. We got another show later on tonight, 7:00. For the people who are new to the channel, I want to say thank you for being here. Any final words before we go? All right, well, go ahead. You got it.
No, I wasn't gonna say anything. I'm good.
All right. Yeah, we about to get up out of here, man. Glad y'all could hang out with us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Just in case we don't get to speak, be safe on the road, and see y'all later.
Oh,
What was she saying about females in the old times about washing clothes? I didn't fully understand.
I was referencing, it was in the broad scheme. I was talking about how much work that women used to have to do. Back in the old days, like prior to a lot of these nice inventions that we have, women had to wash all of the clothes by hand. And so they'd have to basically take all of the clothes that needed to be washed, the sheets, whatever they had, and bring it to a river because you needed running water to do that. And then you had to, that's what a washing board is. You had to do like, it could take hours to do. One of the historians that I'd watched, she did a representation of what it would take, and it would probably take 4 to 5 hours just to do like 2 or 3 dresses, as well as whatever clothes that he had. And it's incredibly backbreaking because you have to be bent over to do this, and then you have to wring out the clothes, and there's a lot of risks involved with doing all of that too. Like a lot of women lost their hands because it went through the wringer and like ripped their hands off. A lot of women also would fall into the rivers and drown, especially because the clothes that they had were so heavy. As soon as they hit the water, they basically like sink to the bottom. And generally working class families, both of them were doing a lot of work because the husbands often were working in the field, so they had to do all the plowing. They often had to do like a lot of hunting, going out, finding the animals, towing them, bringing them back. They often had to go longer distances to get supplies that they needed. Women would go into town usually for like baking supplies and stuff like that, where he would be getting stuff like wood and tools and stuff like that needed to maintain stuff around. So women and men were often working sunrise to sunset, both of which were backbreaking work, both of which were dangerous work. So typically they had equal amounts of work, different types of work, but it was equally tiring, equally dangerous. And I wouldn't say either worked more than the other. I think that unless you were in a more higher wealth family and you could afford servants to do things for you, if you were just a family working for yourselves, you'd both have to do equal work. I highly suggest looking into the history of this. There's a lot of great videos that demonstrate the type of stuff that they would have to do. And it's before machinery, the amount of work people had to do was incredible. I myself had no idea how much work it would have taken to live back in that time period. But both men and women did have to do quite a lot. And again, it was sunrise to sunset just to survive, because obviously you didn't have air conditioners, you didn't have heaters, you didn't have washers, dryers, ovens. You had to do everything for yourself. And the schedule of both of these genders was intense, just to survive. And most people were living for survival and didn't have the opportunity to have wealth enough for servants to do the work for them. I hope that answered the question.
Well said. Well said. Look, we're gonna be back later if you want to pick up from where we left off here this morning. I do want to say thank you for your questions in the comment section. We always try to engage with the comment section as long as there ain't no ignorant stuff. So appreciate the feedback. We will be back later on. If you want to join the conversation again, 7 o'clock, hit the bell notification so you know when we going live. Yeah, we out.
Mantra, slave song, slave ship, rip skin, made me rip bones. But no matter how close I my ancestors speak, they tell me the tide isn't front on us like we're weak. I haven't been getting sleep, longing to sing until I surpass peak, until they think we are equal. Please, all I want is peace. My ancestors beat drums until their bones would bleed, begging the generations remember our story.